Some surprises coming out of day one of Patriots Training Camp. We'll break it down here on Patscast.
Morning sun over training camp ground. Sweat drips dirt, five coaches shouting out loud. New faces.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you, and it's hard to believe that Patriots Training Camp is finally here. We can turn the page and officially say the 2024-25 NFL season has begun. New regime, new head coach, new offensive and defensive coordinators, and of course, a new pair of quarterbacks. And let's start by focusing on the quarterback position. We all know what's happening. The Patriots drafted Drake Maye, third overall. They expect him to be the franchise quarterback of the future. But right now, he's competing with the starting job with Jacoby Brissett. And head coach Jerod Mayo reiterated before practice started, saying, quote, "I don't think there's any doubt Jacoby is the starting quarterback at this point in time," end quote. And yeah, you have to say end quote because it's on the teleprompter. But basically, Jacoby Brissett has the job, but if Drake Maye looks like he's better, probably by leaps and bounds, because if it's close, they're going to give it to Brissett. You don't want to rush the guy. But if Drake Maye, a la Mac Jones versus Cam Newton, looks like the superior quarterback, he's going to start. But right now, that is not the case, and we can continue to say that coming out of day one of Patriots training camp. And look, it's day one. They're not wearing pads. It's somewhat competitive. You know, the fans are there. They're taking pictures. Players are signing autographs. We'll get a better idea once we get into next week just how this is going to play out, but I wouldn't expect the Patriots to name a starter until probably after the preseason ends, right? Especially if it is neck and neck between Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett. But Drake Maye was okay overall. The training camp practice started with some basic drills, passing, catching, and running, and then they shifted, of course, to competitive team drills, where Drake Maye went 6 of 10, had 1 sack and 1 botched snap, and in 11 on 11s, he went 2 of 4. But overall, Maye's putting in the work. He's cleaned up his mechanics, his throwing motion, much faster than I could have anticipated. At this point, he just has to look like the better quarterback day in and day out against Jacoby Brissett, and that didn't really seem to be the case day one of training camp, but, arrived to practice 16 minutes early, was the last player to leave the field before signing autographs. Drake Maye's doing everything he needs to do, and he will get there. It's just a matter of if he's going to get there by week 1, if it's going to be sometime around the middle of the season, or if we're going to see him at all, particularly if the Patriots are a competitive team with Jacoby Brissett. And of course, Maye was the second quarterback behind Brissett, and Brissett actually had a rough time at the beginning of practice today when they got into competitive team drills. On his very second rep, he threw a poor heave throw across his body to the left side. Similar throw that we saw Mac Jones make 3 or 4 times in Dallas last year when we realized he was not indeed the quarterback of the future. So that was not great to see. And then on the following rep, he threw an early interception. So not a great start, but he looked a lot better after. Hit Austin Hooper, the new tight end that they signed for 1 year, on a 20-yard seam route, and also hit Ramondre Stevenson on a halfback wheel route, which is also good to see with Stevenson, who's really done a great job at becoming a decent pass-catching back over the last couple of seasons or so. But it was a much steadier performance than Drake Maye on the part of Jacoby Brissett. Did go 10 of 13 with 1 interception, but that interception and that crossbody throw were both very glaring, and perhaps that's going to help Drake Maye as long as he can clean up his decision-making. But, hey, Maye had a botched snap today. There's a learning curve there, obviously. So we'll continue to monitor this in the coming weeks and see how that QB competition goes. Bailey Zappi and Joe Milton didn't do a lot. Zappi had 5 throws, went 3 of 5. Joe Milton had just 3 throws and went 3 of 3. So he was perfect, right? Joe Milton was perfect. As of right now, I would expect Zappi to eventually be cut, but a lot of that really depends on how much Joe Milton progresses, how much Drake Maye progresses. Do we end up at a point where we say, look, Drake Maye's nowhere near ready, we got to have Bailey Zappi as the backup, and we'll put Maye at third string? That is a possibility, but if it looks like Maye and Milton can respectively fill the second and third roles on the depth chart, then I think Bailey Zappi is probably gone, but they haven't made that decision quite yet, and they're probably going to wait a few weeks before that decision is made, because he's Zappi, right? He's good on some days, bad on others, but I would expect him to be cut unless Joe Milton really doesn't show much and Drake Maye really struggles. But Joe Milton, 3 of 3, didn't do a lot, but looked pretty good on those 3 throws. Overall, though, in terms of attendance, Demario Douglas, who's probably their best receiver on the team right now, I predict he's going to make the Pro Bowl if he's healthy all season. He was limited today, so there are some injury concerns there, as well as cornerback Shaun Wade. No players in red non-contact jerseys other than the quarterbacks. The physically unable to perform, the PUP list, included wide receiver Kendrick Bourne, who is still out recovering from his ACL injury. I think eventually he'll be worked back in there. Linebacker Taki was out. Of course, Cole Strange. We have no idea what the hell's going on with him. And center guard Jake Andrews. Not David Andrews. Jake Andrews was also on the PUP list as well. And new running back Antonio Gibson, their third down pass-catching back, may have been the steal of free agency, if we're being honest. He did not attend practice today. He was out with a non-football injury. Don't know exactly what that was, but it sounds like he's going to be fine and should be on the practice field again very soon. But Demario Douglas missing a lot of key drills. Not great. We hope he's healthy because this receiving core takes a tremendous step back if he's not on the field, because he is the bread and butter slot receiver that the Patriots have always relied on, and he picked up that role very well once he got out of the Belichick doghouse last season. So hopefully Douglas is okay, but we'll have a better idea in the coming days. I think perhaps I said there were a lot of surprises today. Perhaps the biggest surprise, Matthew Judon, Devon Godshaw, full participants in practice. I know there was some concern that they might hold out. Probably not going to happen because that costs you like $50,000 a day every time you hold out. So they're not going to do that. So players often, they hold in. They participate barely in practices. And we were expecting that might happen with both Judon and Godshaw, who are both upset about their current contract situations. But they were full participants. And not too surprising for me, especially with Matthew Judon. He said, quote, when asked about playing under his current contract, quote, I mean, I've got to go. I've got to play, honestly. I signed the deal. My signature's on it. So I've got to play on it. Would I like to? No. Do I think that's my value? No. But again, that's not up to me. And this is the deal, right? Judon does not have any leverage in this contract situation. Yes, he can look back on the past and say, I've been the best defensive player here the last 3 or 4 seasons. I deserve a long-term contract extension, but he is getting up there in age. He missed all but 4 games last season, and he's recovering from that injury. Looks to be 100% right now, but when you're up there in age, you're coming into a contract year, you're recovering from an injury, not a great leverage situation for Matthew Judon. So at this point, he just has to play under his current contract, even if he's underpaid, even if he's undervalued, in kind of a prove-it situation. He said he wants to play the rest of his career in New England, doesn't want to be traded anywhere, but is going to have to play under this deal for as long as we can see. And I don't think Elliott Wolf's going to want to extend him this season. I mean, we get halfway through the year, he's still the best defensive player on the team. He's healthy. Maybe they will consider it, but I have a feeling that they're going to wait until next offseason to consider re-signing Matthew Judon there, and I don't blame them because they have a lot of other great defensive players. They proved they were one of the better defenses in the NFL last year, even without Matthew Judon on the field, and because of that, they want to see what he can contribute coming off of an injury, and then they will figure out whether or not to extend him. But good to see Judon out there. Godshaw in a similar situation. Both full participants. Both don't have a ton of leverage, and that's why they're full participants and they're not holding in. We'll see what happens there. Player of the day, there's a few players that really popped today. Cornerback Jonathan Jones forced a turnover at one point, had multiple pass breakups. He looked really good out there. Jalen Reagor really popped. In fact, he had the highlight of the day in competitive drills on a throw from Drake Maye, made a spectacular one-handed catch, had some of the longest completions during practice, another catch on a curl route, And look, I said Jalen Reagor's going to make the team, not because he's one of the better receivers. I've said he's probably not going to play a ton at receiver unless there's a lot of injuries, but he contributes so much to special teams that he's going to be there. And he's a very speedy returner and can be speedy as a wide receiver as well. But seeing what he did at practice today, I know it's early, I know it's day one, but maybe he'll actually earn a spot in that receiving core and contribute there as well. Really looked like a veteran out there, and we know what he can contribute on special teams, and I think he's going to make the 53-man roster no matter what. I did a podcast a few weeks ago where I talked about Reagor is going to make the team, and really it just comes down to Juju, Tyquan Thornton, and Kayshon Boutte for that last roster spot in that receiving core. But maybe Jalen Reagor is going to earn a roster spot there as well, so that will be interesting to see. He had a great practice today. Remember Marcellus Dial? Patriots drafted him in the 6th round out of South Carolina. Missed most of the time in spring due to injury. He looked really great. He is going to be a great cornerback opposite a Jonathan Jones. Would really love for them to add Stephon Gilmore in there. We'll see if that happens. But Dial looks like he could be a starting contributor right away at the cornerback position. Didn't allow a catch on 3 targets in team drills today, and executed a picture-perfect double coverage with safety Jalen Hawkins to force a deep incompletion intended for Jalen Polk. This comes from Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald today. Marcellus Dial alongside Jonathan Jones, the 2 best defensive players on the field, it looked like today. Really great to see that. But who struggled? That's the real question. Nobody really stood out as really struggling today, except for one guy, and that is wide receiver KJ Osborne, who they signed on a 1-year contract as kind of a bridge slot receiver until they can get some of these younger guys up to playing at an NFL level. Well, KJ Osborne really struggled in OTAs, in minicamp, and he struggled today. He had 1 target in team periods, and Kyle Duggar intercepted it. So not off to a great start for KJ Osborne. I know a lot of people just assume he's going to make the roster, but if Tyquan Thornton and Kayshon Boutte or Juju look better than KJ Osborne, he continues to struggle. Yeah, Patriots are going to throw some money away, but I don't think it's a guarantee that he's going to make the team, even though he was a decent number 3 receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, had to play behind Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. You thought, hey, he could be a number 2, maybe even a number 1 guy in New England, but he hasn't shown it so far. He's struggled with drops in the past and didn't do a lot today. So keep your eye on KJ Osborne. We'll see what happens there. It'd be surprising if he didn't make the team, but I wouldn't write it off at this point, even if the Pats have to throw some money away doing it, because they have a lot of good young receivers and they don't want to hinder their development if they're ready. And then last but not least, I'll get to the offensive line. Michael Onwenu, we all thought he's going to be the starting right tackle of the future. Well, he played at right guard today, and which was his natural position. He's an all-pro caliber right guard, but he's also a very, very strong right tackle. We figured they'd move him over to the right side, move Caden Wallace to the far left side eventually, even though he played right tackle at Penn State. They drafted him this year, or they're going to have Chuks Okorafor on the left side. Nope, Onwenu's at right guard. So Coach Gerard Mayo actually said today that they're going to prioritize talent over positional fit for the Patriots offensive line. Did say they're going to move Michael Onwenu around a little bit. So it's not a sure thing he's going to be back at right guard, but they had their best 5 out there, presumably, and that included Calvin Anderson at right tackle. Remember Calvin Anderson? He missed almost all of last season, and it turns out he missed it because he had malaria. He's the first ever NFL player to contract malaria, and I guess his doctor gave him a 50-50 chance to live. So Calvin Anderson's been through hell and back over the last year, but as of right now, when it comes to the 5 best offensive linemen you can put out there, they're putting in Calvin Anderson at right tackle and then kicking Michael Onwenu back to right guard. So that puts, at least as of right now, the starting offensive line, and this is probably going to change, but it goes Chuks Okorafor, who's going to be the bridge tackle on the left side, signed him for a year, most recently played right tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people think he might be a steal, but we'll see. He's at left tackle. Sidy Sow at left guard. You're pretty confident in Sow. David Andrews, of course, at center. Michael Onwenu at right guard. And Calvin Anderson on the far right side. So that's a little bit different than what we were expecting. But again, this is day one of training camp. We'll see if they can work in Caden Wallace into that starting lineup, whether he's at right tackle, whether he's at left tackle, or you even want to play him at guard. They, of course, drafted Layden Robinson. We'd love to eventually see him starting at a guard spot, but he seemed to be part of that second unit. And that second unit included Vidarian Lowe at left tackle, not very confident in him. City So stayed at left guard, so he started for both units. Nick Leverett, the guy coming from Tampa Bay, started at center. And Michael Jordan, not the basketball player, at right guard, and Caden Wallace was back at right tackle. So they didn't even play him at left tackle. They put Vidarian Lowe there. And Nick Leverett was the center who botched that snap with Drake Maye in competitive team drills. Presumably, when Jake Andrews is healthy, he would be the backup center and not Nick Leverett, but they're trying out Leverett right now until Jake Andrews is healthy. And, of course, they want to work Cole Strange back into that starting lineup, but we don't really know what's going on with him. So Patriots that's the red flag, right, is the offensive line. I've said it many times. They don't have a ton of depth on the interior offensive line, even though you'd think there's a lot of players there. As of right now, with guys like Cole Strange, Jake Andrews out, Layden Robinson trying to work his way in there as a rookie, and then kind of the mixed signals they're giving playing Nick Leverett and Michael Jordan. Not a ton of depth there. But really, ultimately, the Patriots' success this season, I think, is going to come down to that offensive line. I think they have enough at receiver. I think Jacoby Brissett is going to be more than competent at quarterback, or Drake Maye if he's ready. They got good tight ends, good running backs, probably a top 5 NFL defense. But if that offensive line is not ready, they're not going to put Drake Maye out there, and this Patriots team is not going to win a lot of games. So hopefully they can get it together. I would love to see Caden Wallace eventually at left tackle, Mike Onwenu back at right tackle, but the guard situation's a mess, and that's why you got to put Onwenu back there at this moment in time. But like I said, right now, the top 5, according to Gerard Mayo, day one of training camp, Chuksa Okorafor at left tackle, City So at left guard, David Andrews at center, Mike Onwenu at right guard, and Calvin Anderson, surprisingly, at right tackle. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming weeks. But some surprises, again, coming out of this practice. Matthew Judon, Devon Godshaw, not holding in, full participants. Marcellus Dial looks to be the real deal at cornerback for a 6th-round guy. Looks great. Jonathan Jones, Jalen Reagor, all had great practices. It'll be interesting. And we'll be here at Pat's Cast every day of training camp to report what's coming out, and we'll be here throughout the season. You're going to want to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, like this video, hit that notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'll be back the rest of the week with more Patriots training camp coverage.
Morning sun over training camp grounds. Sweat drips dirt, fights coaches shouting out loud. New faces on the field, helmets crashing all around. Drake Maye at the helm, gonna make the crowd proud. Marcellus style quick as a rattlesnake strike. Darting left, ducking right, fist clenching fight. Lines drawn, battles every play in hand. Chasing